All right, welcome everybody. We'll get started on time, but good to see all the presenters are here. Hope you're all doing well.
Doing great.
Wonderful. I'm gonna get my sound set up here. Hope you can hear me okay.
Yep, sounds good.
Perfect. I'll just as we go through, these are as you're thinking about what we talked about. This is just some things we're going to talk about. Feel free. You might have a presentation. You might have just some remarks. You might have some notes for yourself, but just some things to seed the discussion. I'll let you see it early so that I don't just throw it up to you there. But just tell about yourself. How you work with Snap. What worked well for you, and what worked well for your students, and what were challenges. This is talking about Snap, not the curriculum. That's the key. So it's all about Snap itself. What worked, what the challenges as a teacher, what were the challenges for your students. Do you have any suggestions for the team? And if you want to share some projects, that might be fun to do. So just kind of things that you probably saw coming, but just to formalize it for you if you get there. And when we start, I'll say that's all again, but just to let the panelists see what we set up. And I should have probably sent this to you earlier, so hopefully that's not too much of a trouble. Okay.
I took a screenshot of that.
There we go. Yeah, perfect. Perfect. And I'll leave it up, and then I'll let you all share your screen as appropriate and do all of that as well as appropriate. Perfect. Great. And good to see you, Doug, and good to see you, Floria. This should be a lot of fun. Thank you for joining us for SnapCon, as well as thanks to everybody else who's part of the SnapCon family. And we'll start on time in 45 seconds or so. It's a good turnout. Usually we have about, I think we had, even for Jens's keynote, I think I remember seeing 75 people.
Oh.
So it's a little lower number than other years, but it's a healthy, and having 15 here is great. So thank you all for attending this. Kind of fun to do this in person. Kind of fun to actually have an audience.
How many do you have there with you now, Dan?
We've got 3 in this room, so it's hard to count, right? Because the count is more than just the people here. Not everybody in the room needs to be online to do this. All right, let's get started on time. Welcome, everybody, to this panel, a SnapCon on the first day. The title is Middle School Teachers Share Experiences Teaching Snap for a Year. And we're delighted to have, as part of the panelists on the dais, Dave Briccetti, Dastur, and Bob Kahn. So thank you all for attending, and thank you all for not only being part of our SnapCon family, thank you for being part of our Snap family, thank you for being part of our BJC Sparks family. So it's great to have you all here. Today we're going to talk about their experiences. So I put this up just to kind of seed it, and they can use this to pivot, use this to kind of dovetail any way they wanted to use this to think about that. So some background, these 3 teachers were among the 3 leaders of a pilot group of 20 teachers who learned BJC Sparks, Beauty and Joy Computing Sparks, the middle and early high school curriculum last summer of 21. They then taught this course for the year, and all throughout the year we're giving us feedback of what things worked, mostly about BJC, but also sometimes it was about Snap. And we realized, it was a SnapCon conference. We don't really have a BJC yearly conference. Let's actually get some feedback from them about Snap itself. What really worked well for you as a teacher? What worked well for you? First of all, introduce yourself, how you work with Snap. What worked well as a teacher? What worked well for your students? What were some challenges for you as a teacher? What were some challenges for you as a student? There are 2 different angles of it. Sometimes, you're managing projects, so maybe you say Snap could help with managing projects more, or other things. And do you have any suggestions for the Snap development team? And do you have any projects to share of your students? So that's it. I will now stop sharing, and I didn't have an order. The slides are in alphabetical order, so it's Dave and Della and Bob, but anybody who wants to jump in first can jump in, and we have a full hour, and I'll try to keep my eye of the time in case someone goes over, but hopefully everyone can get a chance to say what they wanted to say. So I don't know who wants to go first. Dave, you're alphabetically first on the list, if you wanted to do that.
I have less to say, and I think I've prepared less than Bob and Della, so maybe one of them could start, and I'm sure I'll have things to say, but
Sure. Either
what
way.
do you think, Bob, Della?
Yeah, sure. I wouldn't mind going first. Is that all right, Bob?
Sure, that's great, Della.
Great. I do have some slides, and so let me share my screen. I will introduce myself. I am a computer science middle school teacher. I teach 6th to 8th grade, and I teach graphic arts as well. I'm also the MS Computer Science Department Chair for Stratford Schools. I taught the BJC Sparks program after school at Stratford San Jose Middle School. I'm delighted to have my students join me today. You see Arno, Perines, and Tarang are part of this call. They will also be presenting some of the projects that they worked on. Part of this panel asked of us, what are the greatest SNAP projects you've seen? I would have to say, I get really excited when I see my students apply their knowledge. I can see in their algorithms, they highlight abstraction and generalization. Dr. Dan Garcia knows this because I will email him code from my students just to brag and say, look at this, they learned so well and they've applied that. I've also asked my students to share slides today and snippets of their code where they highlight that and they come up with creative student solutions and applying their critical thinking skills and knowledge. That's when I get very excited. I also get very excited when I see teamwork and showcasing students' collaboration and communication skills. So what I asked my students to do is first make a slide to introduce themselves. I wanted them also just to speak a little bit about their best CS project ever, because that also gives you a little bit of insight as developers of the Snap features and things like that. Maybe you want to think about what is it that really excites them. You're hearing firsthand from them. Also, I have asked them which lab activity to present, but as part of the BJC. Yes, they have picked a lot of the SNAP projects as well. What was hard? What was intuitive? What features would you like to see? You know, I know we said we weren't going to talk about the BJC, but I feel like we did a lot of computing in the news, and I gave them topics, and I told them, speak about one topic that you really enjoyed discussing with the class. They were given topics. Next year, I plan to have them choose a topic. Okay, the first student, actually, she is on a flight to Hawaii. There's a little bit of misunderstanding about the timing. I'm just looking to see if she is online and has joined. Alexis, are you there? Okay, no. So I will present her slides. She also made a video of a SNAP project that she built over the summer, which was great dedication, hard work, and commitment. She's going into 7th grade. She loves programming, coding, singing. She took a couple of courses over the summer. She was telling me about it too. She took Python and Java. She loves learning about technology. She programs in Replit, Raspberry Pi projects. She created this fetch game, which she is going to introduce to you. I had her create a Flipgrid video to show you her game. From her perspective of the BJC program, the best lab activity that she loved to do was the hardware component. You know, it really sparked their creativity. I could really see this as well. She built a mole mash game along with Perines. Perines is here on the call as well, and Peggy as well. They built a mole mash game, putting together some of the learning objectives in the hardware unit. She also found that was the hardest part. So looking back at Unit 1, she didn't feel like Unit 1 was too hard, which was Unit 1 covered a lot of the SNAP projects. What she thought was intuitive was, you know, going through all of the programs and all of the curriculum in BJC where they talked about the features of SNAP and the big concepts of CS. She found that very intuitive. And I will play for you her video.
Hello everyone, my name is Alexis Santosa and I'm currently going into 7th grade this school year at Stratford San Jose Middle School. The game that I've created and would like to share with you all is called Fetch. I will explain a little more about it along the way as I do a short demo of my game. As you can see, the title page includes the name of the game and asks whether the player would prefer a male, Matt, or female, Linda, avatar that will throw the treats to the dog/player. The player must then press the space key to start playing the game. In the main page, once the player presses the space bar, it will take them to the main page where the game immediately begins. The player will play as the dog, addressed as Coco. There will either be a boy, Matt, or a girl, Linda, standing on the top of the screen, with a cat that is asking for him/her to give it treats. The avatar will then switch to a different costume and reject the cat, making it angry. When the avatar yells, Coco, fetch, the game will begin, and the cat, the enemy, will move in different directions to attack the dog/the player. The avatar will then start throwing treats/bones, and the player must catch them. When the player touches the bone/treat, they will say, you got +1 treat, and will add 1 treat to the variable total treats on the top left corner afterwards. The player can go down and up ladders as they wish to escape the cat. Now for the whoops page. If the cat touches the player or the dog with its claws, it will stop the program and show the whoops sign, signaling that the player lost and must start over to play again. Another way that the player would come to the whoops page is if they fall down to the bottom part of the screen or the brown sewer. When they fall down, they will go to the whoops page and also must start over again. Lastly, for the you win page, if the player or the dog catches 20 treats in total, it will take them to the you win page, which will signal that the player won the game. Therefore, this is how the fetch game works. So now I will start playing the game. Oh, sorry, glitched a little bit. Takes 2 times to work. There we go. So as you can see, I can go down and up the ladders, as I said before. I have to avoid being touched by the cat's claws and try to get the treats. It added 1 treat because I caught one. Oh. It'll say you got +1 treat and add to my total treats variable. The avatar will keep moving, but so I went to the whoops page because I got caught by the cat. Therefore, this is how my game works. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed my game. Goodbye.
All right, I hope you enjoyed hearing from Alexis herself. I'm very proud of her. She built this game all by herself over the summer break. I had let her know about SnapCon, and so she built this game just for this conference, which is amazing. I'm so proud of her work. And next we have Arnav.
Hi, I'm Arnav, and I'm a student at Stratford Middle School. I'm going into 8th grade, and one thing I enjoy about CS is that it allows me to find solutions to projects in a logical manner. At the bottom is a screenshot of a Snap program I made to convert a word from English to Pig Latin using recursion. My perspective on the BJC program. In my opinion, I felt like Unit 3 was the most fun out of all the projects, as it allowed us to make fun projects. On the right is a basketball hoop I made that can keep score when you score inside the hoop. My opinion was that the course was easy to follow, and you guys explained the labs really well. Some features that I would like to see later added on into the BJC curriculum is more challenging projects to make the course a little harder for kids that want to do more, and some more hardware activities and maybe using AI implementation. Now, my favorite computing in the news assignment was deepfake voice technology, as it was interesting to learn about deepfake voice technology and learn about the pros and cons about it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Arnav. And I have to agree completely with Jen's who said that recursion at this stage is amazing. I am truly proud of your Pig Latin code that you wrote recursively, as well as incorporated higher order functions. Bravo. Good work. Next, we have Farina's.
Hi, my name is Farina's and I'm in 8th grade. I like to read, paint, program, and play volleyball. I like computer science because it forces you to think differently of problems by using logical reasoning and problem solve. It is difficult at first to think of solutions, but it instantly becomes enjoyable when you start to visualize the answer. My favorite computer science project is called Eyes for the Visually Impaired. This project, I used Raspberry Pi, ultrasonic sensors, an app programmed by App Inventor to inform the blind if they were about to collide into an object and the time it would take to collide. This project was my favorite because it encouraged me to research more about the dynamics of blindness and new concepts to do in coding. I won the Naval Science Award for building a communications device with microbits and creating a mobile app device for people that suffer from aphasia. In the BJC programs, I enjoyed doing the LEET activity, and I also enjoyed doing the color mapper activity. Additionally, I enjoyed creating the Momash game, a project formulated by my team and I. What was pretty hard was changing my ways of thinking to adapt to using higher order functions instead of loops. And something useful that could be a different feature would be integrating other technologies other than microbit into Snap, such as Raspberry Pi and Hummingbird. One of my favorite computing in the news articles was the zipline technologies to transport vaccines. This technically means that drones would help people in rural areas get vaccines, essential for survival. But if the drone were to crash, it could land on traffic or in the wild. In this sense, it is both beneficial and harmful. I like learning about this because it shows how you can think of problems in different ways. And also it has many pros and cons to talk about. This is my code for the LEET. I used a recursive method. So technically what it does is it goes to the first letter. It calls a function for e to 3. And if it's not e, it goes to the next function. And after that, if it's not I, it goes to the next function. And if it's a, then it changes it to 4 and it calls it again. And it keeps doing this over and over until the whole sentence is complete and changed to LEET.
Thank you. Thank you, Farina's. Thank you for sharing all of these wonderful examples. I love this example because it shows student critical thinking and applying what they know to solve a problem. And it is so creative. I love this. I never thought of having do something like this, and I was so amazed to see that unique solution coming up with Farina's. You will soon see Taran had another unique suggestion of doing LEET. You can see the differences in the algorithms. I love this. This is student built and developed on their own. And next we have Taran.
Hi, my name is Tarang, and a little about me is that I'm going to 8th grade in this coming school year, and I like playing video games and I like playing basketball. And my favorite thing about CS is probably the fact that I can problem solve in many aspects, not only just coding, but coming up with an idea to code or coming up with something that I want to code. Now, with Snap, I really enjoyed using it because there was a lot of things that I could solve on my own, and I could also ask for help. And my favorite and best CS project was a role-playing text adventure game, which was rather simple, but it took a lot of time and I invested a lot of time and energy in it. So I had a lot of fun making it. And I used a lot of concepts that I learned from the Snap course to make it. And the code, the picture of the Snap program in the bottom right of the screen is meant to mimic turtle graphics from Python because I love making art with turtle graphics. And it's really fun to just look at how the turtle moves. And yeah, that's basically how I implemented Python in Snap. Now, the BJC program was also really fun, and my best lab was probably lab 6, activity 2, which was the leap function, where I'll show how I came to the process of making a different leap function than what is said in the actual process. Now, something that came intuitive to me was the hardware, where we made crafts like the basketball hoop, which is shown in the right side of the screen. And more features I would like to see in the BJC program and in Snap is more accessibility to encoding and decoding, which was really fun and I really enjoyed it. And more accessibility to connecting to other sources of like materials such as Raspberry Pi and other sorts of third parties. And in our CS class, we often did computing in the news. An article that I really liked was about a 3D printed bridge in Amsterdam. Here, it talked about how it could be used for the better and the worst of the economy and helping people thrive better and also not thrive better. You can see in the chat in which chapters, like lab 6. I think it's in unit 1. And down below, you can see my leap function, where I simply used parameters instead of using recursion and made the process very easy by just adding more parameters than what was in the original script. So that made it a lot easier and changed the time that it took for me to make it by roughly 10 minutes. So yeah, I mean, that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but still, yeah. And that's it.
Hey, wonderful. Thank you, Tarang. Now I threw this in here. There was another part of the school year, and it's this brain pop pic that you see. In brain pop, I don't know if you use it. It's another resource. It talks about functions, and I played this for the students. It has wonderful dance routines that you can make into functions, and so this is just before Thanksgiving, the day before Thanksgiving break. I did this as a fun activity. Let's end the before we go off on to holidays. And Tarang did this wonderful thing. If you notice, this has moonwalk left written right here. I told the students, let's make it a parameter to say right or left. Well, watch what Tarang does. He says, well, no, let's not make a string parameter right or left. Let's give the X and Y position as well as the direction, so numbers instead. And so depending on where they started and the direction, if they started off on the left, they would, and the direction was right, it would moonwalk to the right, moonwalk to the left. It could go in any way. And I was completely blown away by his generalization and the abstraction that he understood. And he did that and he presented. I actually forwarded the email that I sent home as well this morning. And I said, you have to talk about this project. And I'm embarrassing him. So you can see how I get very excited about these kids when they start applying these concepts in simple ways. But you see how well they learn them. I'm very proud of them. I also wanted to talk a little bit about image manipulation. As you noticed, a few of the students here said that they love to do this, creating the color map and creating filters. I have some slides that have challenge activities in doing this in Snap, where you can change the filters of an image and program those. I had students also do this, where I was first given challenges to them. Can you write a program to do this, to make it lighter, darker? And then you can see some of the student creativity in changing the colors of the images. They love this. I also really liked this activity because after that, the students will then learn about binary bits and electricity, hexadecimal numbers, and RGB colors. So you've already got them engaged in these Snap activities, and then you teach them about the concepts of number systems, computer number systems. I thought it worked really well. They were hooked. Another part was when I asked them to do was create a encryption decryption within group members And so I saw a lot of creativity there where they came up with their own encoding algorithms, using binary, using Morse code. Let's come up with some sort of language that only we know and we can communicate with each other. Here, they put some letters in front of each of the letters of the words. And so I saw a lot of creativity there with asking them to do a little bit of encryption, decryption. As you can see, they love that unit. A few of them said that they love that, they want to see more. Another part of this panel asked what would make life easier as a teacher. I really feel that if we had a classroom that I could manage as a teacher and I can click on each student's account and see their progress and see their work, that would really help me, especially when students get stuck. Sometimes they're shy, they don't want to ask you for help, but you're curious, you're wondering, what are they doing? How are they faring? I can go into their account, I can see their work, I can see their projects that they are doing. This would really help me as a teacher. And I wanted to talk a little bit about my evolution in learning Snap. I went to the APCS Principles course training in the summer of 2021, last year. I programmed a tic-tac-toe game using higher order functions. I thought this was really powerful that Snap can offer you to do that. I also learned from Erica Roberts how written assessments are graded for APCS Principles and create tasks. That gave me a really good insight of how to train these students to discuss and talk about their code when they're talking about it with me. What kind of test cases should they show me and things like that. And when I walk around the room, I know from the grading perspective, what are they finally going to have to prove? I can then discuss with them about their projects in that kind of manner, although they're not really doing written assessments, but I'm still asking them those same questions. I attended the BJC Sparks PD in summer 2021. I programmed a frequency analysis program, and I worked with Dr. Dan Garcia to compare an imperative versus functional programming approach. When looking at that one program, I thought that really helped as well. I was a lead teacher for the BJC Sparks, and I taught an after-school program. Finally, there was a question about elements of Snap that get students engaged the most. I feel the animation was is really good to have. Image manipulation, encoding, decoding. And the fact that it's block-based, I think this really encourages novice programmers to get involved and start building complex algorithms. It promotes ideas of abstraction, generalization, even further promotes the use of higher order functions and building complex algorithms. So those are the slides that I had prepared for today. Thank you.
That's amazing, Della. Wow.
Thank you so much, Della. That was
Awesome.
wonderful, especially so powerful to hear from the actual students who were seeing that curriculum. That's so
Yes.
remarkable. And thanks to the students. Thank you so much for the students for coming by. That was wonderful. You did a great job. I'm so proud of you. I could not have done that when I was your age. So amazing job, folks. Amazing job. Who wants to go next? Thank you so much. Yeah.
I'll attempt to follow that.
All right. Very good. Okay.
So my name's Bob Kahn, and I teach middle school introductory computer science or programming coding course at Brentwood School and the middle school introductory robotics class. And this last year, I piloted the program. I got through some, I think, unit 1 and some of unit 2 in for my coding class, and then I did the hardware unit for several of the activities in the hardware unit for part 3, I guess it is. And what I have to say worked really well for me was a couple of things. One, the community of Snap that, is in the BJC. Whenever I had a question or a student had a question that I couldn't answer, and I would say, hey, I'm going to email some folks that created the curriculum or that created Snap and work on Snap. they were just blown away that I was able to do that. And I pointed out that there aren't any other really, in many of the other classes that they have, courses that they have, the teacher can't like email the authors of whatever book they're using. And so they really like that. And I really like that as well. So just being a part of this community is spectacular. The other thing, couple other things that worked really well for me were, and my students, so I'm just going to group that together, was, you mentioned that it would be great if we could have a classroom environment, Della, but in Snap, but I think I figured out a way to use collections for that. And I had each student create a collection folder, and they added me to that folder so that when I went on to the sort of the control panel of Snap, I could see all their collections, and I could go into each collection and look at all their projects. So that was kind of the way I figured out how to do that. And it worked pretty well as long as I trained them well on how to share their projects and then share it with the collection. That required a little rigmarole that some of them weren't always consistently doing. But the collections were fantastic for me. And I also used a collection that I called templates that I shared with all my students. So when we started a new project, I create a template for that project, put it in that collection, and then I would just instruct them to go get that template in the collection. So it worked both ways for the students for me to get a look at what the students were doing, and for me to share a template of the next project that we might be working on. Sticking with the idea of templates, the feature that was added in Snap version 7, where you could hide unused blocks, was just fantastic. And I'll show you an example in a moment of a template that I created with kids and did that because it just helps. It helps the kids that are overwhelmed by all the blocks that are there. And then when I had students that were like, well, wait a minute, where's that other block? I want to do this. I could show them how to show all the other blocks, and they were fine with it. So it was a great way to differentiate for the different levels of programming experience. Let's see, getting help, bridges. Okay, so a couple challenges. When I first opened up Scratch, that tells you where I'm going actually. Snap with the kids. When the kids first opened up Snap, they're like, oh my God, this is like Scratch. And they immediately started bringing in sprites and making things go all over the place and coding them to move and flash. And it was driving me crazy. But I realized that was a good thing after I got over the fact that it was driving me crazy, because they felt a certain level of comfort because they had had experience with Scratch. And so they were like, oh, this is like Scratch. And so they dove right in. And I think the next time I use it in my class this upcoming year is I'm just going to allow them that time to explore and make crazy things so that they get that out of their system. And then I'll say, okay, now look what you can do beyond what you can do in Scratch. And I think that was a challenge, but I turned it around. Let's see, another challenge for me, and this may not be necessarily related to Snap, but just working in this kind of environment with middle school kids, is that there are some that look at a project where they're given so much freedom and it's like a deer, they're like a deer in headlights. And there are others that love that. And then there are some that loved having a template of directions to follow. And then there are others that just didn't like so much instruction. So, I mean, that's just a balancing act that's not necessarily related to using Snap. And my kids definitely, I had a different set of kids for my coding class than I did for my robotics class. The kids were engaged in both courses. I think the unit 3, the hardware unit, was probably a little more compelling for them because they did get to build things and they got to work with hardware, and that really, really resonated with them, making games and things. I have a couple behind me that I wanted to show you. So I had one student made like a little basketball game where, you know, you can see the microbit here, and they made little aluminum foil basketballs, and they would go into the cup. And he's got directions here that he made as to how far away you needed to stand. So that was a cool one. This student created a maze. And
Oh, wow.
I have to admit, I was like skeptical at first when she started this, but I just let her go with it because she had a vision in her mind. And this little aluminum marble ball that she made, you start here on this red spot, you weave it all the way through, and then down here at the bottom corner where they win, it has to, let's see if I can orient this so that you can see. This is challenging for me visually, but you had to roll the ball so that it touched both these two aluminum foil bits at the same time so that it completed the circuit. And then that would cause the celebratory microbit to do its thing. I had
Very
one
cool.
student in the hardware unit, when they made their own game just on the microbit itself, he made himself a little controller that he used just visually so that he could make it feel like a, I don't know, a control. And then another student developed a dartboard for the hardware unit, which I think might have been one of my favorite projects because it required so much problem solving. How were we going to create the circuits? And you can see we used some of the copper conductive tape that that folks at Berkeley sent to us, and we had to scale it back, but and then we had to make like a square dart that would somehow hit both of these at the same time and then help complete the circuit on the back. This is where the alligator clips were attached to. So this was one of my favorites. Let's see. I feel like I've been talking for a long time. Can I just show a couple more things?
Sure.
Please,
Yeah,
keep
we've got
going,
time.
Bob.
You're doing
Okay.
great. Thanks, Bob.
I'm gonna share my screen here. Let's see, I'll do this. So this was one of the projects. This was I know this isn't about the curriculum, but this project was well, I'll let you see what this project is. This girl was so creative and she continually wowed me. If I click the green flag, oh, and then I click the little character here. Bonjour, I'm Monsieur Coquita. Tell me what your favorite ice cream flavor is, s'il vous plaît. And so if I'll just do this quick.
Jungle.
And then there's a sound that comes up, and I'll just do this
Jungle.
quickly. C for chocolate,
Audio Jungle.
V for
What's he
vanilla.
saying? George of the Jungle?
No, let me hear it again.
Audio Jungle.
Audio jungle. I don't know what that means.
Audio
So
Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
I think I need two more.
Audio Jungle.
Okay, and so that was her graph. And the thing that was neat about this is I don't think the kids ever using Scratch really understand that there is more that can be done than making games and animations. And so the fact that you can collect data and graph that data in kind of using emojis and infographics was really compelling for some of them. The other thing that I found that worked really well for me too, is I realized this a little ways into the course, was that in combination with the idea that I can hide unused blocks. And I realized that if I'm going to use that as a template, I can put the directions right in on the screen there in the project for them to follow. So it was like a one-stop shop for them to get the directions of what they needed to do and what the challenge was, and having some template blocks to start with and work with, and hiding all the other ones. And so that's something, both of these features I plan on using a lot more this coming year. So that's it. It was great fun.
That is very cool, Bob.
Thank you so much, Bob. That was outstanding. Wonderful. Woo!
Thank you.
Especially our group, we have some MicroBlocks folks in the room, and they were especially wild with all the projects that you were showing. So that was really great.
I have a couple of ideas as to features, if I may, really quickly.
Oh yeah, go.
For Snap, I'm blown away by the fact that you can take a screenshot of a block, or you can export the script or a script pick. It's a PNG, and you can drop it back in there, and the code's there. That just blows my mind. What I'm wondering is,
you can do the MicroBlocks too, by the way, I'm hearing. So that's awesome.
I know. I was just working on one of the things from the Learn, and I was building it, and then I saw it drag into your MicroBlocks one, and I was like, no way. And it blew my mind all over again.
That's awesome.
But I'm wondering, it would be, even if you could copy the script pick to a clipboard, so that you wouldn't even need to, like, you could just copy it and then paste it right in to another sprite even, or something other. I haven't quite thought about it completely, but if there was a clipboard feature, that would be cool. And then also, you reminded me, Dan, with respect to MicroBlocks, all these features that I talked about that I love about Snap, with the collections and being able to see the students' work and so forth and saving to the cloud, I really wish that was available for MicroBlocks as well. Okay, I'm done now. Thank you.
Thanks again, Bob. That was wonderful. I'm going to switch it over. Dave, it's all yours, my friend.
Okay. Well, I found a few things to talk about. I really, really enjoyed that from Della and Bob, and especially Della bringing the students. That's just so nice. I think they've presented a good picture of what we're doing here, but I'll just add a few tidbits. I put some links in the chat, and let's see if I can find. So here's a picture of some, we call them interactive pets. This is from the Beauty and Joy of Computing Sparks curriculum. And you recognize microbits probably in these projects. And you also see some sort of templates, or this is a bird, here it's a cat. Here someone's cut out a, what is that? Is that one of those Disney? Shrek, maybe. That's a Shrek. And I have access at one of my schools, which is the Athenian School in Danville, California, to laser cutter engravers and 3D printers. So I've been having fun doing that. Okay, I have a new share. If I can find this now. So I like the, so this, if you'll indulge me for a second, this is not so much about Snap, but it's about what we're doing in the curriculum. So this is a project where there are 4 microbits. There's one in my hand, and then these other 3, and they're running a program that is meant to control gates along a Hot Wheels track. So imagine the first gate maybe releasing the car and gravity pulling it down the hill, and then 2 time units later, the time units are quarter seconds for reasons which you may figure out. 2 quarter seconds later, this one will open, and then 6 quarter seconds later, this one will open. So let me just run this. Oh, when I went full screen, did I lose you, or do you still see it?
No, we still see it. That's great. Yeah, we don't hear anything.
Okay,
We
good.
still see it.
Oh, I should share the sound because you can hear the sound of the servo motors. Oh, I think it's going on in the playlist, but you can kind of get an idea. So these are communicating by radio. Let me do this and come back to this. Okay, so that's that. And then I just to give some of the background about me, I'm a software developer, have been. I started writing code professionally right after high school in 1979. And so I've had an interesting career with lots of languages and things. And I've been teaching for, I guess, about 30 years or so now. I teach students privately. They come to my house, or more recently we're remote. And then I mentioned the Athenian School in Danville, and then St. Perpetua School in Lafayette. And if you want to see what I've done at those schools with Snap and BJC, take a look at 2 of the links that I posted in the chat. You can see what I did all year long at St. Perpetua and what I've done in various classes at the Athenian School. And then a couple links to YouTube playlists where there's more of the hardware stuff and electronics and things. Okay, so that's what I've got to say, and I hope we'll have some interesting discussions and questions now.
All right. Thank you so much, Dave. That's wonderful. Let's give Dave a hand. Beautiful. And now I will add all of our panelists as a spotlight, and I will take any questions from the audience for anybody. Yeah, okay, we have a question in Berkeley. Kathy.
How many middle school teachers went through the curriculum?
So there's a question, how many went through the curriculum? 20 in 2021 and 45 thanks to our friends in Maryland in 2022. So all told about 65 teachers. And one of the things we saw is that not everybody had the same situation. You had some folks who had like a trimester, so they would basically get through just about Unit 1, which is kind of reporters, a very functional driven unit, and then they wouldn't even get to Unit 2, which is like Scratch, and you wouldn't even get to Unit 3 hardware until they had a new group of kids. So you had kind of repeat version of that. Some faculty were able to have the same group of kids for the whole year and got through 1, 2, and 3. Some faculty saw Unit 3 and how much fun hardware is and try to skip through or do an express version of 1 and 2 to get to 3 as fast as they could. And then what's interesting is really, and I want to, by the way, I need to honor Diana Galosi, who is my master's student. She's a PhD student in Colorado now, and she authored the hardware unit. So that was her master's project. She did an amazing job. And everybody who's working on it and saying how successful it was, it's thanks to Diana. So it's not me.
It was masterful.
It's really wonderful. She brought in 10 years of working at the Exploratorium, one of the greatest science museums, building kiosks, building an interactive space where you would work with technology and learn something. So she didn't come just brand fresh. She came with all that experience, and it really showed for what she built. And what was wonderful, she really wanted to break down the hardware unit of like, let me introduce for every lab, let me introduce one new thing at a time. Let's talk about just drive the lights. Let's drive, here's the first sensor. So each one was very beautifully done. I thought, it wasn't my design, so I can really honor how well she did it. To just add one layer after another until the end, and I'll share if you haven't seen this, the last piece of the hardware unit is like a Rube Goldberg. So the whole class gets to build all of it together, in which one group of students passes virtually onto the next group. So whether you're passing a physical metal ball, aluminum foil ball, are you sending a radio signal, are you shining a light, are you turning on a motor, you're doing something to get pass it to the next group. And then the next group does something fun, but makes a sound, and then pass it. So like you'd have all the parents in the outside of the room, and then all of the projects would then pass to the other tab, to the other, which is really wonderful. It's wonderful. And one of the beautiful things about using MicroBlocks versus other techniques we've looked at was that the laptops are closed. They just run by themselves. So that's what's amazing about all the software you've built. And so a lot of students really spoke to that as being really fun to do. So it was a different perspective of thinking about, don't just throw them all into the deep end. Let's really gently take them through the pieces you do. And at the end, you can bring it all together in any way you want. It's wide open. And so that's one of the things we learned, is really allowing for a lot of creativity. One of the, we saw Della's students and some of the things that Bob has done. It's like you have to have open-ended projects. You can't just say, do this, and that's it. And you have to have really wide walls. And so the idea to say, do anything you want with your project is really the space that's out there.
And then I just wanted to throw this out there for those MicroBlocks projects. If they want to send them to MicroBlocks, there's a Learn section.
Oh.
Great examples of
Oh.
projects.
Can you all hear that, folks? You're saying you can send the projects your students are building back to MicroBlocks under the Learn section, and then they can be highlighted and spotlit and all those things. So that's wonderful. Thank you. I actually didn't know that. That's great. Good stuff. Wonderful, wonderful. Doug, do you want to ask your question? I see it in the chat. Do you want to unmute and ask it? That sounds great.
Sure. Well, a lot of these projects are outstanding, but I'm hearing that they're often created by clubs or after-school groups. Are these activities created by those, or are there things that I can do with my general population, particularly those kids that aren't yet aware of the beauty and joy of computing? They're in the class because they were assigned. How can I engage them to get them to this level?
Great question. Teachers?
I'll say that in my at St. Perpetua School, that's during the school days. So that's not after school or a club or anything, and it's not an elective. So I have the entirety of grades 6, 7, and 8, it's a small school. It's about 30 kids in each of those grades, and they enjoyed it.
Is that in the grade or in the class?
Yeah, so grade 6 is about 30 kids, and the same for 7 and 8. Is that what you're clarifying?
Well, when you
90
have
kids.
a class, you have 30 kids in your classroom at one time?
Yes, which is
Okay.
Challenging, especially
Right.
when it's not an elective. And not all the kids are really into it, but most of them were. And we started with a video from Dan talking about the growth mindset and kind of introducing the BJC, and the kids loved it, and they did a lot with it. So that's my experience.
I can also speak to that too. My course was during the school day. I had about anywhere from, I have small classes because I'm in an independent school, 10 to 14 kids. And I would have kids that, would come in and a couple were maybe not that interested, but most of them were. And I think what really pulls them in is kind of like what Dan just said. Show them an example of a project, and that's what I would do. I would always model my creating one first for them, and then, but I'd have to be careful doing that because I didn't want them to copy exactly what I did, because that's a tendency for some. But every time at the end of each project, I would give them a form to sort of evaluate so I could send feedback to Dan and his group. And they always appreciated the fact that they could do their own thing, that they could tweak it however they wanted to tweak it. And I think that's really, really important because it gives them ownership, it gives them agency, and it makes it feel like it's not prescribed, that they all have to do the same thing. So I just had a really loose, as long as they were exploring and they were using the blocks and they were problem solving and trying to create, that's what my goals were. And so I allowed them to do it, whatever it was.
I also have a couple of tips and techniques also for getting students who are not joining clubs. But for the students who do, if, for instance, I have a few of them with me right now, Arnav, Tarang, Parinez, they're part of the after school programs, yes, and they're part of the clubs. They create these wonderful projects. What they also do, which I love, Arnav, shout out to you. He and his friend Janelle, for Christmas, what they did was that they made a flyer and invited all the students to come in and build an app with them. And they made it all about Christmas, and the room was packed. So these are students who don't join computer science clubs with me regularly, but just the fact that they were excited and they saw students get excited about their projects, I think that brought them in and said, okay, this kid's really excited about something, I want to go and see. I think when you do those after school programs and you have those students get excited, they bring with that back into their regular computer science classes. And that, I feel, invites more students to enjoy computer science as well when they see that excitement happening in their peers. And then they bring their friends and then they discuss it. I think that's how you get the whole room excited. If you can get a few kids excited, it will be contagious.
All right. I thank you guys much. I've had to turn my page with my notes I'm taking on this. Thanks.
Answer to that as well.
Sure, go ahead. Can you all hear? You can come over. Come
I
over.
advised a superintendent of public schools near Novi schools, RJ Weber, and he bought, when the V2, microbit V2 first came out, he bought 500 for every single 5th grade student, and they didn't have the curriculum, the teachers didn't know how to teach it, and they didn't have BJC Sparks, and they gave it to the kids, and the kids loved it. Because with MicroBlocks, you can start very simple, and you get real good reaction of pushing buttons or having something happen, and the kids loved it and started producing sounds and words and stuff, and they didn't have a formal class around it, but it was just enough incentive for the kids to know that they can do and create technology, and then they will want to take those other classes. This was 5th grade.
Wow. Wow. Good stuff. All right. Any other questions? I want to just ask a question if we have a couple minutes. We end at 1, or we end on the hour. One of the things that people may not realize is that we took a particular take on Snap for Unit 1 and 2 that was different than any other, than even our normal BJC curriculum that's for high school, which is we wanted to focus on reporters first. Only reporters. We never taught them move. Like normally, you intro to Snap, it's let's move and turn and make a square. We didn't do that. We didn't do that for months. And then only when we got to Unit 2, we did that. We had a little bit of like a command block that might push something to the stage or something. But really, it was reporter, functional programming paradigm, and then a command block at the end. But really, it wasn't about the command block. And then we talked about move, turn, using the event structure, making games. So I want to hear either from the students or from the teachers, how did that go? In some sense, it's almost like you've got a hungry dog and you got the food on the far side, and the food is the games they want to make, and you're kind of holding the leash with Unit 1 before they can finally let the leash go and they run to Unit 2 and they make their game. So how did that go in terms of working with this functional paradigm first and staying in that before you could release the leash and let them go to Unit 2 and do anything? I just got some perspective on that.
I think that went fine. And as you know, Dan, I'm totally with you on the functional first approach. Doing functional programming professionally myself, it is kind of, you give up some of the appeal of some of the graphical sprite animation aspects of Snap if you just allow them to make reporter blocks at the beginning. But the projects in the curriculum were interesting and engaging enough that I never experienced that as a problem.
I think I had a little bit more of, that was more of a challenge for me. And because I come from the experience that my students had previously coming into my course was really about making games and animations. And so that was their expectation from the get-go. Most probably, I think in my programming class, I had 14 students. I had one who was like ready to transfer out in the first couple of weeks, but then he stuck with it. There weren't any other options for him and so forth, but he stuck with it and it worked. I like the idea of the functional approach, but what I did was I sort of teased them a little bit, and I allowed them to add a sprite to make it a little bit interactive without making a game, but just so, again, they could put their stamp on it with their visual components. And I think that worked. And then when I got towards the end, it was like, okay, now we're going to make a game. And they broke the leash and I stopped pulling, and to use your analogy there, your metaphor. So I liked it, but I had to modify it a little bit.
I can see, especially when students come in with Scratch experience, wanting to be able to do that, and no, you can't do any of that. That's not what we're learning today. We're learning some new idea of reporter. And by the way, Scratch doesn't have the ability to make a reporter. You can't do that in Scratch. And so that's why that's the big new thing they're learning. And so letting them know that that's good, but we're learning something new, and then you can go back to where, leveraging what you've done before. Thank you for that perspective. Della, do you want to share maybe the last thought?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that all the labs were so engaging that I don't think the students even thought about, oh, I'm missing out on building a game. I think they were just so excited to do what's in front of them and learn. There's so much of a vocabulary and further readings that they can do. I think they were just blown away with the curriculum. As you also saw in their slides, they mentioned all of those wonderful activities as the best part. And they met me on a Saturday. I was actually doing this on a Saturday because I do lots of other programs at school, and as well as they have math club, speech and debate, drama. These things are very popular at the school, so I couldn't pick a day that I know that these students will be a part of those clubs. I didn't want to do that to them and put them under that conflict. So I said, let's meet on a Saturday morning, and they met me. They met me every single Saturday, and I had around 35 students that met consistently every time. And I think they were just blown away with all the labs, that they didn't miss out on that game, building a game. Of course, I would love to hear from the actual students if they're there, or do you completely agree with me, or feel free to chime in.
We're almost at time. I'm seeing the up here. Nope, I'm still there. Many are muted. I do want to do this, which is I want to make sure I honor, first of all, the SNAP team. We love working with them. I cannot tell you a more symbiotic experience we have than writing the BJC curriculum and having our friends be there. So when we want a feature that gets added, blah, blah, blah. Like it's the healthiest I know of no other curriculum in the world that has curriculum and the software so beautifully, seamlessly connected. So I do want to, first of all, thank the SNAP team. I also want to honor Mary Fries and Brian Harvey and Pamela Fox, the folks who built the BJC Sparks curriculum, for being so wonderful, as well as honoring all the teachers. We've got 65, and the students who are being part of the BJC Sparks and SNAP family. Let's thank you all for this wonderful session. Thank our presenters. Yay, SNAP, yay, BJC Sparks. Great job, everybody. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful job, everybody. All right, we're at a break. We've got 15 minutes. We're going to all take a walk, take a bio break, and we'll see you all in Oyez, including the 2 pods, who are going to stay residential and then be in the online space to connect so we can talk and have more conversations. And we'll see you at 15 after the hour. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming to this panel. Woo! All right. Beautiful.